What about using a certain synth for a certain type of music? Would Massive be better than another one, or something like Sylinth for house? It's spelled S-Y-L-I-N.
I think, yeah, a lot of these synths are capable for all styles of music, but something like Sylinth, for instance, it has a lot of kind of arpeggiator stuff going on, so it's very good for trance music. But that's more to do with the presets and stuff and just the way it's laid out. But if you wanted to, I could make, you know, some really good drum and bass style bass lines in Sylinth probably, you know. It might take a bit more time. And again, Massive is normally used to make dubsteppy wobbly type sounds because you have the performer and the LFOs are very good. But if you wanted to, you could actually, if you spent a bit of time with it, you could actually probably make some really good trancey sounds. And, you know, all Massive's a very versatile synth anyway. But yeah, generally you have certain synths that are more geared towards certain styles of music, but that's more to do with the presets or what they're focusing on. Like in Sylinth, I said, like the arpeggiators I think is a big part of it. So again, it's more to do with trance. But in general, they're just tools, you know. So I think if you delve a bit deeper into these synths, and again, like I said before, just try and get a few that you really like, and just really get into the nitty gritty of them and exactly how they work. Spend a lot of time on them rather than just skimming over the surface of all these different plugins, and you'll be a lot more rewarded. I mean, even like, you know, like I used to use the ES2 all the time. It's pretty much my, you know, I had quite a few third-party synths, but I just used to do everything in the ES2, and I learned it inside out. And a lot of people just, because it comes with Logic, they're just going to think, oh, well, it's not that good, you know. There's the latest thing come out by Rob Papin or whatever. But no, you know, just spend time on a synth, and you can, and you'll be rewarded. Because that's the thing. Back in the day, before everything was in computers, it was all physical hardware, right? So you'd actually have to save up your hard-earned cash for a particular synth, and that might be the only one you've got. You're gonna, you know, you've paid money for this. It's the only one you've got. If you want to get some sounds out of it, you've got to spend some serious time learning how the synths work. But now, because it's easy just to have loads here and there, and you know they're quite cheap, or a lot of people use cracks and stuff. It's very easy just to not have the value in these things anymore. You know, so I think it's important, like I said, just to concentrate on one thing and learn it pretty well. Yeah,
and that's cool to hear that coming from a guy like you who probably has access to as much stuff as he wants.
Yeah.
You know, at some level you could be testing a new synth out every day. And yet you're more productive by really getting to know.
Yeah, just recently there's a new one that comes with the native instruments, which I'm really excited about, called Contour, which is quite interesting. Let me get it up real quick. Native instruments. I think it's part of Reactor, and yeah, it's really good. I mean, you know, there's quite a few other ones as well in here, Rounds and a few others. But rather than go back and forth, I'm going to spend a lot of time now learning this one synth, Contour. And again, it's like a phase distortion synthesizer, which is a bit like FM synthesis. Which isn't your standards. Normally FM synthesis and phase distortion synthesis is quite a complex thing. Like the FM8 is used to make a lot of complex sounds, but it's a very complex synth. But what Contour does is there's a lot of complex stuff happening under the hood, but it makes it kind of quite easy. And again, with a lot of these synths that are not based on analog subtractive synthesis, I'm not necessarily 100% know what's going on. And that can be a good thing, you know, as long as I know some rough basics of how LFOs and envelopes work and stuff, I'm going to get a lot more interesting sounds out of it because I don't know exactly what's going on, you know. Let me give you a quick. Why isn't this playing? I must have something soloed. Yeah, I won't get into this now, but yeah, basically. I'm really excited about Contour, and I'm going to spend time just learning this. If some other synths come out, I've got some other ones, I'm not going to spend so much time, you know, going through them. I'm just going to get my head down and for 6 months or whatever and learn this inside out, you know, make a load of sounds out of it, know how to use it, and then move on to the next one.
Awesome. Somebody asked if you could show us the second drums and bass track you opened yesterday.
Okay.
I want to hear some of those synths.
Yeah, a lot. I think they were talking about the "We're Not Here" track. Some of the synth sounds were just samples from the original track that I was remixing. Some of them were original sounds. Yeah, I'll go through that quickly. There's some, yeah. Oh, that's going to start being funny, isn't it? So basically, this is the track here. So that's one of the synth sounds. This one is actually, I didn't make this, this is part of the original track. This piano sound was part of the original track as well. Let me just play it quickly first so people can hear it. Yeah, so basically the bass on here, I think this is one of the few occasions where I did actually use a separate sub to the main bass line. So if I solo this. So that is D&B sub, and again this is from my Loop Masters pack, so I originally made this in some synth, I don't remember what. It's pretty much just like a sine wave that has a bit of wobble and a slight bit of distortion on it. And then on top of that, I had this re-space sound here. And this is actually a sample from somewhere, this sound, and then I've put some EQ on it, just a little bit there, some more EQ there. I've got a loudness maximizer on it, because there was lots of up and downs on the different frequencies, so this kind of made it a bit more solid. And again, one more EQ, taking the bass out because I'm using a separate sub. And also I've added some reverb to it. Yeah, I do actually, talking earlier about the reverb and the drums, I do still tend to use reverb quite a lot on my bass. That's without it, and that's with it. But when you put reverb and bass, always put an EQ afterwards and take out all of the bottom. Otherwise you're going to get some kind of phasing problems or just some mush with the reverb. And again, that's one of the reasons that I use reverbs on a bus as opposed to putting it directly on the channel. Because depending on the reverb, if I put it on the channel, I might not be able to take the bass out of the reverb separately to the overall sound. So yeah, reverb on the bass, always take the bottom out of the reverb. And also here I've compressed the reverb as well. Doesn't really seem to be making much difference, but there you go, I've done it anyway. Yeah, what other sounds have we got in here? I've got another one here. Oh, that's so, no. Okay, so that sound there was originally a bass sound. So that's something I do sometimes, is I take a bass sound and what I've done, let me take all this off. This is actually quite a lot for me, what's going on here. So this is the original sound, which is, oh, actually, I've actually made this one in the ESX24. So if I take the filter off, that's the original sound. What I've done, I've got a filter on it, which I've done by an LFO assigned to the cutoff frequency, which you talked about on synthesis on day one. So yeah, if you want to know more about that, then go back to that. That's without, that's with. And what I've done, I've played it up higher, like that. Sounds not very good on its own, so what I've done here, I've got an EQ on it. Boosted some of the tops and mids to bring some of that fizz out of it. Then I've put a distortion on it. Distorted it a bit. After the distortion, another EQ to take some of the bass out and boost some more tops again. And then I've got a load of load of aux sends on it. So the first one is a reverb, quite a subtle reverb there. Next one is a distortion bus. This distortion bus, I've got some EQ, boosting a certain frequency there, guitar amp pro, channel EQ, overdrive, and on this bus I've sent it to more buses again. So I've sent it to bus 10, which I think is a reverb, and bus 13, which I think is a delay. And next I've got a delay designer on it, which is like a stereo delay which pans across. And then lastly, another delay. So if I take all this off and take, and take the filter off, this would have been the original sound. Just quite. So it's basically just a bass sound played up. And then with everything on it, filter, all this, it's turned into that. So that's one of the sounds. I think I have another one here as well. What's this? So that's another little sound in there. I think I've got it up an octave here. Yeah, I don't know if you've noticed, but that's a trick I use quite a lot. Probably on about 3 of the tracks I've shown you over the last few days. It's on, if with a little sound like this, I only do one at 1 octave, the next one I do it up an octave just to give it that kind of variation. And that is, I think it's the same sound actually, but with different set of plugins and stuff on it. Yeah, it's more extreme on the distortion and stuff here. Yeah, so I think what I'd done, so I should do quite a lot, I probably would have had this sound and I would have pushed this copy key here and then change, oh, and plus on this one I've got a spreader on it because these sounds are all mono. Obviously with a bit of reverb and delay it makes them a bit wider, but I've also got the stereo spread here as well because this is happening at the same time as these other basses here. So you can kind of, if you listen in the middle of the stereo field, it kind of widens it a bit and it separates it a bit because it's in a very similar frequency range as the rest of the bass. What else was there? Okay, so over here, there's some more bass sounds. Oh, and again, here we go, it's that same bass, that broad bass, so that's how I would have made these sounds down here. I probably would have went through a few synths, wasn't really getting inspiration, and then thought, you know what, it's got I would have just used this bass, and thought I'll just add some plugins on it, play it up higher, and then got some synth sounds out of it. Now, originally, I don't know where this is from. It's just a sample, basically. I don't know where it's from. Over here. Again, there's some kind of like 808 sound here. 808 kick tone, which I would have got from somewhere. And I think that's about it, really. I mean, all the other sounds in here were from the original track. Just some kind of like synthy sounds and some string sounds. Oh, and also here I've got, actually, I've got a little piano here that happens every now and then, which is just my M1 piano. But I think I've done some extreme EQing on it, taking a lot of the bass out, adding some mids, taking the very tops out, put some overdrive on it, and a bit of reverb and a bit of delay. So if I was to take these two off here, you'd hear what it sounds like. And also one other sound. Now this sound is interesting because this I actually heard in my head and I was like, right, I want a sound that does this. And I went about actually creating it from scratch. So I think I probably went to go to the bathroom or something and I was like, actually, yeah, I need a sound that does that. Basically what this sound does is this. So it's just like a pad type sound that just rises up. I'll play that in context. And the way I made that is, what I've done, I would have chose some waveforms here. I think they're all, it's a sawtooth, and a pulse wave. Let me turn the Control A, what have we got going on here? Oh, I think I automated it actually. Yeah, I did. See, I could have done that with envelopes and stuff, bringing that filter up like that. But I think in the end I wanted more control, so maybe I assigned it to the modulation wheel. No, how did I make it rise up like that? Interesting. Yeah, and that is bizarre. There's no automation on there. Oh, there's something under here, look. I can see it in there. Yeah, somehow I've drawn in some modulation of the filter opening. I can't seem to get to it somehow, but yeah, basically I wanted to make a pad sound with a chord, and I wanted the filter to slowly open, so I just went ahead and made the sound from scratch, and then put a bit of delay on it. I wanted it to stop dead as well, so I made sure that the release was all the way down, because normally on these type of pad sounds you have the release up, so when you let go it trails off, but I wanted it to just stop dead and then have the delay on it, which is what I've done here. So with the delay. Yeah, so that was the last sounds, and I think that was it. Yeah.
Awesome. Singing for Him wants to know, what do you think about Logic Pro X's drum feature, or do you think it's best to make your drums from scratch every time? Have you ever used the built-in drum feature in Logic?
Yeah, it was quite interesting. I mean, it's a little bit gimmicky at first because you've got this guy who's got his name and he's a little drummer and so on and so forth. But the sounds in it are actually quite good. Yeah, I did actually sample a load off actually. I made my own kit out of them. One of the main advantages of that Logic drummer is a thing called round robin, which is each time you press the snare drum, for instance, even if you're at the same velocity, it will play a different snare. So for kind of live sounding drums, that's really good. But for something like drum and bass, you might want exactly the same snare each time. But in general, I was quite impressed by the built-in drums there. Yeah, I think also you can get it to play for you as well, if I remember right. You had a little thing and you could move it to faster. I thought it was quite good. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it had good sounds. The little play feature was good. Plus the fact that you could program it yourself. You know, I thought it was pretty good. Yeah.
Awesome. We've gotten a couple questions about where you draw your inspiration from, and maybe this is a good spot to wrap up on, is just sort of talking about who you listen to and what inspires you, and what that process is like.
I listen to a lot of music all the time as well. You know, I mean, I have a lot of producer friends, and they very rarely actually listen to music. You know, like even just in the background. You know, maybe if they're driving their car, they might listen to it. But in general, they kind of music becomes work to them, so they only really listen to music when they're making it. Me, I'm kind of the other way around. Sometimes I can be sitting in the studio and I'd rather just listen to music than make music, right? So sometimes I think it would be better if I was a graphic designer, because I could just spend all day listening to music. But yeah, no, I listen to a lot of different styles of music. I like a lot of 70s music, a lot of funk and Latin and stuff. And I suppose whether you know it or not, everything you listen to, I suppose, influences you in a certain way. Yeah, I listen to all kinds of music: funk, a lot of reggae, house music, new, old. And again, I can learn a lot from it. I learned a lot from Dr. Dre's Chronic 2000 album. I've never been that much into hip hop, but I remember listening to that, how much space there was in there and how much less was more. You know, like the kick drum would literally only be, there'd be less kick drums than what you know, normally there'll be an extra, I'll be tempted to put a few more in there, but it didn't actually need to be there. You know, there was so much space, and I just learnt so much just from listening to that album. And I think, yeah, I mean, there's two sides to it. There's inspiration, and then there's the technical side of mixdown and stuff. You know, I think it's a good idea to analyse it from a mixdown point of view. It's good to analyse your favourite tunes and actually listen carefully to, you know, the different elements of what's going on there. I remember when I first started getting into engineering and I first started doing that, I was a bit upset because I could never listen to music in the same way again. You know, a kid or someone, or people not really into production, they hear music as a whole. You know, they hear the whole song. They're not really listening to just the bass line or just the backing vocals or something. So when you first started getting into it, you start thinking, oh, you know, I can hear that kick drum, I can hear what it. And at first, it was a bit like I couldn't really listen to music in the same way again as a whole. Now I can kind of switch it on and off. I can hear it just as a whole, or I can kind of analyse it. But I know a lot of producers as well purposely don't listen to music, especially within their own genre, just because then they can be more original and they're not being influenced by their peers. You know, which can be good as well, because you know whether I'm conscious of it or not, I'm going to be copying certain traits, you know, of the genres that I'm making. So yeah, I mean, it's a personal thing whether people listen to a lot of music and you know, are consciously influenced by it.
Yeah, awesome. Do you have any final closing thoughts?
Yeah, again, another thing, like I said, less is more a lot of times, you know. Like on edits and stuff, for example, instead of adding little extra bits, little extra snare rolls, just take something out instead, you know. So that can be quite helpful. I think that's it, really.
Awesome.
But let me just go through some of the sounds here. I think that one was made in Massive, possibly. Kind of a bass guitar type sound. That's a classic lately bass. Yeah, so any form of kind of dance music that's quite hard, these are good for, really. And they were made in lots of different various ways. Some of them were made using just soft synths, and I might have put them through a bit of outboard EQ or something. That one was made on the Mini Brute, but then also processed. And again, I use all these, so it's not like I've just thought, oh right, I need to make some bass sounds for loop masters, make a load of sounds, and then they're gone. You know, I get a lot of use out of, you know, using these in all my tunes.